All right, this is Atlas's 12th filmed session, and I'm just further desensitizing to the stick. So in the previous lesson, I just introduced the stick and had him kind of touch it with his nose, and he was a little bit worried about it, and so for most of the time, I just moved it near him, so I wasn't sneaking up on him. I was just kind of having him get used to the movement of it, and now we've moved on to touching him on his face, and then we kind of moved down his neck here, and I'll start rubbing on his chest too. So I'm going to be using approach and retreat. So like he wants to move, that's okay. I'm just going to ask him to kneel his hindquarters. I'll come back and start again. And then I'll retreat right there. So he's most confident with it on his face. And then I'm just going to work my way back down, like on his shoulder. And then it touched his shoulder right there. So I'll click and reward him. So I'm using approach and retreat, and I'm also using positive reinforcement. So the approach and retreat part is where like I start on his face, I work my way down. I'll just touch him once with the stick on the shoulder, and then I'll kind of move my like rubbing with the stick back up, and I'll click the time where it's on his shoulder. So I'll start here on his face. He's okay with that. Work my way down, and then I just barely touch him there. I'll click him and go ahead and feed him. So he was thinking about leaving there. That's okay. So as long as I'm touching him with the stick and he's staying there, then I'm rewarding him for allowing me to touch him on the shoulder with the stick. So I'm just going to repeat that process until he gets more comfortable with me touching him in new places with a stick. So I'm just kind of rubbing along his mane here. So I'm just rubbing further down, and then once I get further than I have been before, I'll click and feed. And then I always start back at the beginning. So I'm approaching, and then I'll touch further, come back, and then if he's staying there, I'll click that further part. So I'm just saying, oh, when the stick touches you somewhere new, you're going to get clicked and rewarded for it. And so I'm just kind of touching him on his shoulder, or not on his shoulder, further back on his belly, a little bit further, and then I'll retreat. And then we'll start back up here on his neck. Work my way on his chest. He's not too sure about that one. I probably stayed there a little too long. I just have him kneel his hindquarters, come back, start again on the head, work my way down his neck, and then I'll just barely touch him on the chest. I'll click him while the stick is on his chest. And then I'll feed him. And then I'll just speed up the parts where he's eating here. And then all I do is just get him used to the touch of the stick on both sides, and then we'll kind of progress from there in a different video. But again, I'm gonna start on his face. He's a little worried, but he's staying, so I'll just retreat there and come back. Be like, it's okay. Like every time he's worried, I'm just gonna retreat. So he wants to kind of move there. He's leaning away a little bit. So I retreat back up a little bit, and then I'll step back and come back again. And there he let me touch him a little further on his shoulder, so I'll click and reward that. So with this form of desensitizing, I am retreating when he is worried, because I'm telling him, okay, I see that you're nervous, and I'm just going to take it away. And then he knows that I'm listening to him, and he becomes more confident in me. Times when you don't want to do that are times when your horse is pushy and confident and relaxed, and this horse is none of those things. He's afraid. He's a wild Mustang. He's not confident. He's just genuinely afraid. If your horse is not genuinely afraid, then that is the time where you want to stay there until they relax. So if the horse is worried, or like a little worried of something, or just bothered by something, you stay there until they stop. And those horses are more just saying, I'd rather not do this. This horse is just genuinely scared. So there I'll retreat again. So I'm just kind of mixing up a little bit of approach and retreat, kind of depending on how he's feeling. So he doesn't love this. He's leaning back as I touch him with the stick on his neck. But as my stick was on his neck, I'm clicking him, taking it off, and then feeding him some grain. So I'm just basing it mostly off his body language. So most of the times when he's leaning back or like preparing to leave is when I'll just retreat. And then when he's staying there, once I get further than I've touched him before, that's when I'll click and feed him. So I'm just using those two things together. So I've worked back on his withers here. Retreat a little bit. I want to work on that chest a little bit. There, he's staying pretty good. I'll click him because once he touched, my stick touched under his jaw there, and feed him. I'm just trying to get him used to just the whole front end, so like nose to like the middle of his back roughly. I want to get all that desensitized roughly at the same time. So I do break it down, but he's to the point in this video where I can get past his withers a little bit and down to his shoulders a little bit. But I always start kind of letting them target it and letting him touch it. So then I'm just going to work and do the same thing on this side. Same process. It's just a little bit easier to see on this side. So again, I'm going to start on his face. He's cool with that. Take it away. He was a little worried there. So it'll be like, I'll go back a step, rub on the face, and then go back. Good. So he let me rub on his face that time a lot better, so I'll click him and reward him. So any improvement, I'm going to click and reward. So in the beginning here, I'm going to give him continuous reinforcement every time he does something that I want. I don't switch to an intermittent reinforcement, which is not all the time I'm going to click until later he's already learned the behavior. Right here, he's still learning it, so I stay consistent. So there I went down on his shoulder and then came back up, went back down, and then I clicked him, and then I'll feed him right here. So this was the same thing I did on the other side. You can just see it better and see where my stick is being placed on his body from this angle. But I wanted to show the other video too, because without it getting super boring, I do like to show just the raw training. Like, this is what happened, this is how it was, without getting too crazy. But I try to keep the lessons short with the horses anyways. But going down here toward his withers, down his shoulder he was a little jumpy at, and then I'll come right back up and back down, and there he let me touch it on his shoulders, so I'll click him while my stick's there and then feed him. But he's being quite good. He hasn't run off or anything. He wants to move, but he always comes back and is interested. So I'll work my way back down. I can touch on his withers, touch on his shoulder. He wanted to move there, so I retreated, and he wants to move more. That's all right. I'm retreating by coming back up on his neck. Right there, I'm coming back, so I'm working my way down. And there, he was good. He stood still, so I'll click him for having my stick on his shoulder there. So really, I'm just retreating when he's thinking about moving, so he's shifting his weight, he's looking the other way, maybe he jumped a little bit, and then I'm clicking when he's standing somewhat relaxed, but standing still. So I start on his face, work my way down, work on his neck, and then I'll retreat back up to the flat side of his neck where he's more comfortable, and then the other side, underside of his neck, and I click right there, because he was really fine. He was looking right at me and was very relaxed, so that was quite nice. So for this lesson, I'm just going to end it right here. So I'm just giving him multiple handfuls of grain for my pack there. So he was kind of waiting and watching me there. I'm just trying to give him the rest here. So I want to base my lesson time on how well he's doing, some progress, and then also the amount of food I have available. So you want to plan for that.